You're ever driving down the road and your wheel just happens to fly by you? Today, we're talking about thread engagement. What's up guys, I'm Nick from Koenig, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that isn't often discussed, but is super important, and that is thread engagement. Before we get into this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe down below. First, let's talk about what thread engagement is. Thread engagement is how much a lug nut can thread onto a stud, or how much a lug bolt can thread into a hub. Thread engagement is important because when you don't have enough thread engagement, you also don't have the proper clamping force required in order to hold the wheel down to the car. You run the risk of the wheel leaving the car prematurely. So how do you determine how much thread engagement you need? You need to have at least the diameter of your lug nut. If you have a lug nut that's 12 by 1.5 millimeters, you need to divide 12 by 1.5 in order to find out how many turns you need. For this particular lug nut, that's going to translate to about 7.5 to 8 turns. So how do you make sure you have enough turns? Scott, throw me the paint. Thanks. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your lug nut and you're going to put a little bit of paint on it, or whiteout or marker or anything you have, just to put a marking on it. So I'm gonna put one right about there. So now that I have the paint on the lug nut, I'm gonna put it onto the thread. All right. Now that it's catching, I'm gonna twist it. And remember, I said it was gonna be about 7.5 to 8 turns. So I'm gonna start twisting it. That's the first turn. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8. Just off of that, I know that there's going to be enough thread engagement in order to get the proper clamping force to prevent this wheel from rolling off of my car. Something to keep in mind is that not all lug nuts are created the same. Some lug nuts will have threads start closer to the bottom, which will allow for more turns onto the stud. So here I have 2 lug nuts. On this one, if you look closely, you see that the thread starts a lot closer to the bottom than this one does. That means that this lug is going to get more turns onto the stud than this one will. We often get the question, how much torque do I need to secure the wheels to the car? We can't answer that for you. This is dictated by your vehicle manufacturer, not us. So you can either call your local dealership or check your owner's manual. All cars have different size studs, which is why we do checks like this. You want to make sure you have the proper thread engagement, especially when changing hardware or changing your wheels. Cars like Lexus and Toyota that tend to have shorter studs, which is why when changing wheels or hardware, it's important to check for proper thread engagement. So the final point, even though we don't endorse them, is wheel spacers. You need to remember that when using a spacer, even one as thin as this, you're going to lose the amount of thickness that this spacer is of thread engagement. So for example, if you have a 5mm spacer, you're going to lose 5mm of thread engagement on that lug nut. On spacers that are thicker, you'll notice that some of them will come with studs in the spacer, so that way you can still get the proper thread engagement. For thick spacers that don't come with studs in them, people tend to use extended studs. So that's it for this video on thread engagement. If you guys have any more questions, comment down below. Make sure you like and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.